All right, so we're going to have one presentation before we break for tea. We'll then have tea, and then we will have the final presentation. But I think it is in good order that at this stage, I acknowledge the massive support from our key sponsors. Would like to recognize LMCI, ICZ, Bright Insurance Brokers, the Nyaradzo Group, Emeritus Reinsurance, OSI, FBC Reinsurance, CBZ Risk Advisory Services, and Doves. Let's give them all a very big hand for that support. Also would like to recognize the Zimbabwe Independent, Mukari, Waikari, Fidelity Life, Transaccess Reinsurance, Grand Reinsurance, Allied Insurance, Old Mutual, as well as Coronation. Let's give them a big hand as well. So will the ZIG guarantee permanent stability? Your response? Okay. So you will have noticed in previous presentations that issues around stability and things like that were at the center of a lot of, there was quite a lot of attention towards that, isn't it? And we once again are honored to have Dr. Persistence Gwanyanya to just give us a presentation on that. And obviously we'll also have a discussion session. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Dr. Persistence Gwanyanya. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I'm supposed to talk about ZIG and whether it is able to guarantee or deliver permanent stability. ZIG is the Zimbabwe gold. And it is the currency for Zimbabwe, having been introduced or launched on the 5th of April this year. Now, you always want to reflect on what could have led to the introduction of this currency. What could have been going in the heads of those that came up with the currency? Given the journey we have traveled so far with our local currency since 2016, when the bond note was launched, it is tempting to think that stability of local currency is elusive. The journey has been characterized by episodes of instability, followed by stability, but on account of interventions from monetary authorities. Just reflecting last year, 2023, you remember in May 2023, on account of the depreciation of our local currency, the authorities, both fiscal and monetary authorities, came up with measures to stabilize our currency. And for some few months, and I think until October, we enjoyed some relative stability on the local currency, the ZWL then. But as we went into November, December, and the first quarter of this year, instability had re-emerged. And this could have led to the launch of the ZIG in April, on the 5th of April this year. So this journey I'm describing characterizes the journey of our local currency, I think, since 2016, as I have indicated. So we haven't yet gotten to a point of permanent stability. But one would then want to ask the question, so is the ZIG going to deliver the permanent stability that we seek? So permanent stability happens when your currency is able to deliver the characteristics of money, that is as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, but also as to deliver other important characteristics of money permanently. So it is able to preserve value domestically. It is able to be accepted on transactions domestically, but even internationally. So that is when we think we have gotten to a point of permanent stability. The kind of start-stop kind of stability doesn't constitute permanent stability. Now, given our situation of the country, where issues, currency issues, are mainly traces to the history, the journey we traveled as a country, and therefore has become permanent or structural. It is hard to think of permanent stability. It takes more convincing, and even not only more convincing, but the real action. It takes the real performance of a currency for the market to believe again in our local currency, to trust again in our local currency. But the question of whether ZIG is adequate to deliver that, I think, finds the answer in how the ZIG is structured. ZIG is backed by the precious minerals, foreign currency, but you may want to agree with me that it is no longer fashionable to back your currency with gold. But in our situation, we hate to do that because currencies today are backed by confidence. That's the fashionable thing. I think post the gold standards, the gold standard in 1971, when President Nixon abandoned the gold standard, it has become fashionable to back currencies with confidence. That's why these paper currencies, notes and coins, are called fiat currencies. Fiat, driving from the fact that they are backed by faith, they are backed by trust in the currency. But in our situation, it is preposterous for one to insist in backing a currency with the confidence when we know the confidence is bottomed on account of the journey we have traveled as a country. The journey that is characterized by hyperinflation. All countries that underwent hyperinflation find it very difficult to claw back, find it very difficult to renew the hope in their own currencies. Germany is a good example. The demand for cash today in Germany is still very high, despite the fact that they experienced hyperinflation many years ago. So Zimbabwe is not so different from all other countries that experienced hyperinflation. That is why it is important to rebuild the trust to rebuild the confidence in our currency. And you cannot think of any other way of doing that but rebuilding the confidence in a currency through structuring it around a commodity that is globally believed to be the most trusted commodity to deliver value. Gold is believed to be the commodity that has managed to outperform all paper currencies and to beat inflation. So that could be the reason why you would want to back your currency with gold. But you want to agree with me that just backing a currency with gold doesn't guarantee performance. Just backing it. A gold-backed currency is not self-executing. Meaning that the gold has to be used to support the currency in the event the currency is under pressure. The idea of backing a currency with gold is to guarantee convertibility. So if you guarantee convertibility of a currency, and if the market sees that currency delivering in respect of convertibility, firstly, that is expected to rally the people or to renew the confidence of the people in that currency. Because the current scenario is our currency compared to, in a multiple currency system, the US dollar, it cannot be viewed as a viable alternative if it is not convertible. Because the US dollar elsewhere in the world is highly convertible. And this is the currency it is competing with. That's why in our basket of foreign reserves, the US dollar is even there, but also precious minerals. But you want to then liquidate those precious minerals to support convertibility of currency if it is falling under pressure. So that is the original thinking of ZIG. So if you are able to guarantee convertibility of the ZIG, it means that the currency is now able to perform in respect of foreign payments, meeting the foreign obligations. But that is not enough. The currency should perform in respect of value preservation. Not all of us are interested in foreign payments, but we are also interested in preserving value, and especially of our wealth. These constituents know better about value preservation. This is why people take pensions. This is why people invest. They want their wealth transferable into future without loss of value. So if a currency cannot deliver that aspect, it becomes very difficult for the market to believe in that currency. But the first thing would be for that currency to be able to guarantee convertibility. Now, the question, if ZIG is structured that way, the question is, how has it performed so far? It is beyond debate, it is undebatable, that on its introduction, ZIG was well embraced. The market embraced the ZIG. The market was prepared to give ZIG chance. And I think the ZIG also performed upon introduction. So if you look at when we introduced the ZIG, the value of money or transferable balances or usable balances in the bank, which we call M0, ZIG M0, and including non-negotiable certificate of deposits. I think it was around $1.3 billion, thereabouts, after recalibrating the ZWL, which was calculating to around 90 million thereabouts. And I'm sure you heard about the story of 90 million. But as we progressed with the year, but also on account of normalization of the monetary aggregates, you may want to agree with me that a country as big as Zimbabwe cannot run with usable balances of 90 million or so. That could be a reflection of the decimation of the value in the economy in the previous monetary regime. So the natural expectation was for the monetary aggregates to normalize. And as the monetary aggregates were normalizing, ZIG money supply was growing at around 51% per month. I think for the first 4 months or so, it was growing at that level. That was good enough in my view, because the monetary aggregates were normalizing, reflecting acceptance of ZIG, but also reflecting de-dollarization, as the ultimate objective is to eventually de-dollarize. However, it appears that beyond a certain period or level, that is beyond July, the normalization, or what we saw as normalization of the monetary aggregates, became pressure on the ZIG. So it became pressure because if you are not moving in time or timeously to support the pressure on the ZIG, the demand on the ZIG, which could be on account of de-dollarization, it may turn out to become a problem. So, which is exactly what I think we experience as an economy. Admittedly, the authorities might have moved slowly to intervene in the market as the ZIG was falling under pressure, or the over-acceptance or the acceptance of ZIG beyond expectation evidently resulted in some pressure on that currency. Unsurprisingly, our currency went under serious pressure and started to depreciate. The authorities only intervened in a more meaningful way on the 27th of September this year. But as authorities intervene, one would want to understand the rationale for the intervention or the rationale for the measures. The authorities intervened by tightening the money supply in the economy, which simply tells you that money supply was now growing in excess of the expectation, or in excess of what the economy could support, in excess of what the markets could support. But it is also reflective of, because we still had the reserves, it is also reflective of the support system of the interbank system, or in the economy, of the ZIG itself. You needed a more functional, a more efficient interbank market. We also need the transmission mechanism between the central bank and the banks to be more efficient. But this is a market This is an interbank that has been redundant for how many years? So did you expect a kickstart and go? So we might have overlooked that. That the efficiency, market efficiency, was not going to transform overnight. We needed a more efficient transmission mechanism so that even the policies by the central bank transmit into the economy efficiently. So that we did not get. That's why we had to intervene by tightening the monetary situation in the economy. So normally, monetary authorities tighten the money supply through the interest rate policy. So our interest rate prior to the measures was 20%, and it was increased to 35%. So to discourage borrowing. But also, as depreciation happened, it meant that it created an arbitrage opportunity for borrowers who would then put pressure on the currency. So that decision had to be made. The second measure is to do with the statutory reserve ratio. So statutory reserve ratio for both the demand and term deposits had to be increased. So for the demand or core deposit, both US dollar and ZIG, the statutory reserve ratio was increased to 30%, or were increased to 30% from 15 and 20% respectively. But for the savings and term deposits, which were at 5%, the central bank had to increase that to 15% as part of the tightening, as part of dealing with the excesses of monetary expansion. So the central bank had to deal with that issue. But more importantly, as the market was playing, we also saw the depreciation of our local currency in the alternative market. But also, even as it depreciated, it appeared the market was now operating at the depreciated exchange rate of around 1:22 and up to 1:25. When the official exchange rate was still at around 1:14. A correction had to be made. An adjustment had to be made. Hence the depreciation of the exchange rate from around 1:14 to around 1:25. And the question that naturally arises is whether this did not disadvantage the players in the market, because one would want to think that as value erosion. But in my view, most of us in the economy are operating at that level, except for the government, which was still operating at 14. So, again, I think that was necessary to equalize the government, because it was collecting taxes at 14, but the economy was operating at 20, 21, 22, up to 24. So that was necessary. Now, the question would be, after these measures, and obviously the confidence, the impact, the effect on confidence. How will the people believe again? How will the market trust again? Will the market trust again? I've already indicated that the idea of a structured currency is to guarantee convertibility. But I'm sure now, post the measures, for those that participate in the interbank market, there's now improved convertibility of our currency on account of accessibility of foreign currency. But this monetary measure is not enough. As you may want to agree with me that the exchange rate had not eased the extent one would have expected on account of these tight monetary conditions. Yet, the tightness in the economy is being felt elsewhere. The economy is very tight. So, it means that the monetary policy alone is not enough to guarantee permanent stability. We need the fiscal leg. Because what we're seeing, or what is still driving the slow adjustment to the monetary policy measures, could be the rejection effect. Remember, we are in a multiple currency system. So the moment one thinks the currency is under pressure or the ZiG can no longer deliver, there's an option for the US dollar. And that option for the US dollar may result in currency rejection. So if you go into, if you want to transact, someone, for the mere reason of wanting to reject your currency, would just quote you a ridiculous exchange rate for the US dollar, for the ZiG. Because there's an option, there's an alternative, which is the US dollar. In actual fact, the instruction is they are rejecting the ZiG. The rejection effect can only be cured or can effectively be cured through the fiscal leg. The fiscal leg is responsible for driving the super demand of the currency. The fiscal authorities concur with the monetary authorities on this aspect. It can be a matter of timing, but they concur. So what this does is you cannot reject the local currency or ZiG without consequences. Because if you reject the local currency and government requires that local currency for payment of duties, taxes, statutory obligations, and user fees, including utilities, you may not be able to sustainably reject the currency. Because you will immediately need that currency. So this is the phase we're going into. As the budget, as we await the announcement of the budget, we have already discussed the pre-budget. And we are expecting super demand for our local currency from government. So it may seem impossible because over the years, the government has demonstrated preference for foreign currency. It's still okay. There's a source for foreign currency for government and for even the market. The interbank is the source for foreign currency. The Reserve Bank is supporting the interbank through statutory surrender. But with functionality of the interbank and demand for the ZIG, voluntary liquidation is possible as well. Because the government requires that money for payment of duty. You might have to voluntarily liquidate the US dollar to be able to get the ZIG. But it also means we need to also be tightening the money supply, the ZIG money supply. So you look for the ZIG. But how do we tighten the ZIG money supply? The central bank is not a user of ZIG. It is Treasury which uses the ZIG, which drives the ZIG. The central bank is only there to tighten, but what would have created somewhere? Now, you want assurance that Treasury will not go into money supply growth drive. For now, and at least what has been agreed on the pre-budget seminar, is that Treasury is projecting a balanced budget. 174, 178, thereabouts, $180 billion this year, ZIG, which is almost balanced budget, and within the SADC guidelines of 3%. So this gives us confidence of fiscal prudence from Treasury. But also, we expect some drive on local currency demand by Treasury. They've already started. You remember the issue of QPDs that are now payable in ZIG. And Treasury is seized with other duties and taxes to be payable, to be increasingly payable in ZIG. To that extent, Treasury is underwriting, supporting the underwriting of our local currency. But what we also support the tight monetary policy and fiscal prudence is the debt restructuring, which is currently underway, which is currently happening. So as we successfully restructure our especially short-term debt, we are able to support fiscal prudence. We are able to support tight monetary policy. We are able to widen the use case of our ZIG. But the case of widening use case of the ZIG doesn't rest on government alone. Even monetary authorities, there's need to widen, to deepen our financial markets. We need more investment products to offer viable alternative for the US dollar. I was talking about the US dollar as the value preservation alternative, as the value preservation investment domestically. But imagine if we are able to come up with alternatives, ZIG alternatives, what you would do to even you in the pension space and fund management space. So there's a real need for market development. There's a real need for the widening and deepening of our financial markets. And I'm sure Reserve Bank is seized with that. If you get to that point, it means there is no need for everyone with the ZIG to start looking for US dollars. You may start looking for are the alternatives, ZIG-denominated alternatives. It's possible. So that only alleviates the pressure on the US dollar. But as we get to that point, you want to agree with me that currencies, by their nature, are supported by law. That's why they are legal. So the question of enforcement is also important. As we get all these things right, we need to enforce the multiple currency system. But as we enforce the multiple currency system, I think government also needs to deal with the situation where adherence to the multiple currency system may be selective. So there should be strict adherence to the multiple currency system. If Malawi is able to observe the usage of its currency holistically, why not Zimbabwe? So there may be need to deal with exemptions of the multiple currency system. And that should be supported by enforcement of the multiple currency system. Our FIU should be able to enforce the multiple currency system. Whilst many may still have issues with the ZIG on account of the previous performance, I believe that there is hope on the currency, despite the challenges we faced, which I want to attribute to a learning curve. And we think we are getting there. But this also occurs at a point where every one of us is aware of the channels of pressure in the economy, especially in the last few months. There is significant progress that we registered in the real economy, in the infrastructure space. And that arguably cannot happen without some measure of giving up something. Economies work through trade-offs. If you are succeeding more somewhere, you should be looking for somewhere you should be doing badly somewhere. But we are very happy with the progress we have registered in the real economy, despite external factors of drought, but also as we were emerging from the COVID period. The economy has managed to register growth of 2%. We are still in the positive, despite those challenges. And we are expecting the economy to grow at 6%. But going forward, to guarantee stability, there may be also need to trade off this growth with stability. If we are able to successfully do that, I still see permanent stability as possible. Thank you.
Passion. Dr. Persistent is persistent about his passion. Well presented, well articulated. So I heard a bit of moaning and groaning as the presentation was going on, so I would love to get that to come through, yeah? I think the issue that comes out, and I liked the acknowledgement that the doc put there, is an issue around confidence. 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 And I'll open the discussion by asking us, all of us here, if somebody can give me the statistic. When you look at the gross premiums that are going through in the insurance industry, at the moment, what percentage is USD and what is ZIG? Does anyone have the numbers? Or whenever the latest numbers were, who would have the numbers? What percentage of insurance premium is ZIG against USD? Approximately? USD? Please use your mic. Just start talking. Just start talking into it. USD 70% and 30% ZIG. Is that about right? At all? Okay. And to get the question going, why? Why?
You know, I would actually hazard about 80%, and I think the bulk of the Zim dollar or ZIG business is probably more than third party if you look at it in, you know, when you talk of short-term insurance. But for me, the whole issue is about the retention of value in a currency. You know, one of the critical things about insurance is that you are selling a promise, and you must be able to keep that promise at the end of the anniversary period of that insurance program. And when you look at the ZIG, or whatever local currencies that we have had in the past, I think that's one of the key issues there, that there's no confidence, number one, in the client who is buying the insurance policy, and also even in the company that is selling that policy, that if you do so in ZIG, you have that retention of value at the end of the insurance period. So this is the reason why I think you find quite a lot of clients migrating to US dollars. It's about that promise and the ability to maintain it, you know, up to the end of the insurance period. So in the US dollar, you are finding a retention of value over a long period, whereas in the local currency, I think we suffer and we lack that. So for me, that informs the reason why you find that a lot of our revenue is now denominated in US dollars.
Awesome. Any other contributions there?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the question comes just for you. Do you think that we'll go back to 14? That's one. Number two, yes, you advise that there are things that are happening in the background to try and prop up the ZIG. And most of those things seem to be aimed at the formal sector. What's happening to the informal sector? What are we doing about the porous border? Money just goes out. Things just come in. And all these things are the simple things that probably are affecting us, and we are leaving them and trying to come up with now innovative ways of having different instruments and so forth. All that will come to naught if we don't deal with that informal sector and our board.
Doc, do you want to comment on that before I ask anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you. The first question to do with the levels or the proportion of US dollar to ZIG in the financial system. I think in terms of the targets, the authorities were targeting a ratio of 70-30 by year end, 70 in favor of US dollars, down from the peak of 85-15 thereabouts. When I spoke about the de-dollarization unraveling faster than expectation, this resulted to the ratios at one point during the de-dollarization period of 60-40 at one point, as the market embraced the ZIG. But, and the numbers are there from the central bank. If you check the numbers from central bank, you will see that. But the turn-off point was, I think, in July or post-July. And we started to see the reversal of this dollarization for the reasons that I've already indicated. So what you want is where we are today, yes, we admit the level of dollarization is still high in the economy. But we are more encouraged with the direction that you take rather than where you are standing. So if on account of the measures that have been taken and the measures that are going to come from Treasury, by year end, we are able to see ourselves clawing back, then it should be able to give us some measure of confidence that we are in the right direction. Not that we have gotten there. Clearly, we have not yet gotten there. Then the question about, do you see ourselves going back to the exchange rate of 1:14? We are more interested with stability rather than the exchange rate itself. The economy, as I've indicated, when the measures were taken, was already operating at 1:22. And at a point where the government was operating at 1:14. So, as we claw back, we are more interested in whether the current stability is going to hold. But if this stability gets us to a point of return to 1:14, then it's good for us as an economy, because we would have managed to recover the value. But at the moment, I think the concern is all about stability, and stability doesn't mean exchange rate. It means that the alternative and formal exchange rate have equilibrated. So if you get to that point, we are at a point of stability. The question of the informal system, agreed. The level of informalization is a key threat to stability. In fact, it is a key threat to the transmission mechanism of the monetary policy. But you want to agree with me that the economy is coached around incentives. And informalization is also a result of incentives or disincentives that encourages this nefarious situation. So, as Treasury is ruminating the fiscal interventions, I'm very happy that the question of informalization was one of the key discussions on the pre-budget seminar. And measures are being taken to deal with the informal nature of our economy. But you may also want to agree with me that as we return to stability, we are also increasing the incentive to formalize. The tax regime also has to be, in my view, streamlined to support formalization in the economy, but also to support the usage of the formal banking system. So, admittedly, informalization is one of the structural factors that has been causing difficulties in attaining permanent stability. But informalization, as it has become structural, cannot be sorted overnight. It also speaks to what we're doing in the real economy. And I've already indicated to you the progress that we are making in the real economy, especially in the infrastructure space. Investment in infrastructure space is seen as investment in future production and productivity. But it cannot happen without consequences. Firstly, we experience the consequences which are mainly in respect of some instability, but we know we are investing in the future.
All right. Mr. Katona, do you want to take that?
Thank you very much. Doc, just a quick question. You seem to have pinning hopes on the monetary policy achieving its objective if the Treasury maintains the expenditure within the 3% and or the 178 billion. So my question really is, what's your fallback position as central bank and also the MPC if the Treasury, based on prior trends, breaches the 3% and also continues funding projects outside of the budgets, like what we are seeing really in our RPC? Thank you. Did you get it?
I think the question speaks to the coordination between Treasury and Reserve Bank. We have got statutory guidelines that guides the extent to which Treasury can overspend. And it is the role of Parliament to ensure that Treasury lives within the statutory guidelines. Reserve Bank or Treasury is expected to, in terms of overdraft, the maximum allowable Treasury can do on Reserve Bank in terms of the statutes is 20% of the previous revenue. But to show you that they are prepared to discipline themselves, even outside the statutory requirements, Treasury has not sought recourse to the overdraft for many years now. I think more than 5 years, they haven't. They've also managed to live within the SADC guidelines in respect of the budget deficit, SADC guideline of 3%. The budget deficit has been averaging for many years, for a number of years, 1.5% thereabouts. But the question is not about the extent to which expenditure from Treasury is a threat at the moment. But the question is about how well we are managing the liquidity, and even within the parameters, the budget parameters. So we must be seized, or we must wrap our mind around how liquidity can be managed. And this function is the responsibility of the revived Liquidity Management Committee. And this Liquidity Management Committee comprises Reserve Bank and Treasury. And to that extent, we feel that the checking mechanism between the two authorities is good enough to guarantee some measure of judicious management of liquidity, which is necessary to support stability going forward.
All right, I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna take one more, and then I will conclude this session.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for taking your time to respond to some of our questions. Maybe just an interesting fact. I was reading a book, When Money Destroys Nations, I think by Philip Hansalam and Limbert. And after going through it, you will notice that we are going through cycles since 2000. And nothing really has changed. It's just going in circles. It's an interesting take. My first question is it possible for a nation to function without the control of the monetary side and just focus on the fiscal side? That's the first. And then the second, the reason why I asked this is you will notice that we've got both the formal and the informal sector, as alluded to before earlier on by the second speaker. We will have control of our formal systems, but no control of the informal with the monetary side. And then thirdly, on the issue of trust, you talked about trust and confidence, and you said we're now going to the gold-backed. We're now backing our currency with gold. So my question then is, does that change trust? If you didn't trust someone before, and they say they now have gold, will you now have trust? Will it not be better if the holder of the backing is someone that both market participants and even the citizenry trust, and even the monetary authorities trust as well? I think it will bring trust to everyone else. And then the fourth question, I'm sorry I had a lot of questions, it's to do with consultation. I wanted to know if the Reserve Bank or the monetary authorities consult, especially reporting accountants or professionals when they're introducing especially new currencies. The reason I ask is because of comparability. So for everybody who has a functional currency, that's Zim dollar or ZIG, they won't be able to compare their numbers pre-ZIG period, which makes it a bit difficult for foreign investors to also understand the financial reports, which makes it a bit difficult for them to invest, or the FDI that we talk with. So if not as a recommendation, it would be good to involve or to engage all the parties involved to make sure that whatever comes out isn't harmful after the fact. Thank you.
Doc, I wish you all the best there. The whole myriad of questions, but I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Money Destroys Nations. Someone promised me that book. I'm still to read it. But I don't know what would be the motivation for a country to function without the monetary side or without monetary policy. I don't know what's the motivation to reinvent the wheel. Economies are mainly coached around the fiscal and the monetary policy, and for a reason. And this was developed over time. But I guess your question seeks to invoke a sense of autonomy or independence of the central bank as important in transmitting or administering the monetary policy. So if the central bank is not independent, but now they don't talk about independence of the central bank because you can't be independent in an economy. You talk about interdependence. You need to be coordinating. So if there's no proper coordination between fiscal and monetary authorities, it means the efficacy of the monetary policy is compromised. So clearly there's need for interdependence, independence between the two policies. Then the question to do with, the question to do with trust. Trust is earned. And this is exactly the reason why, in the absence, as I have explained, in the absence of that trust, you are trying to develop the trust. You are trying to earn the trust. I have indicated to you that the gold-backed currency is not self-executing. The mere fact you have got gold-backed currency is not the guarantee for trust, but its working is what guarantees trust. The working of gold-backed currency or ZIG should be in such a way that it is convertible. So the convertibility of that ZIG will build track record of the currency. And as you build that track record, you are automatically building trust in that currency. So it is not that the mere fact we have got gold, people should trust it. It must execute what gives trust. So we expect that gold-backed currency to execute, to be able to renew hope in the people. And the other question was to do with
consultation or something?
the consultations. I'm not very sure to what extent you preferred the consultations. But if my memory serves me well, I think the governor, prior to introduction of ZIG, he visited almost every province in this country. He had discussions, presentations with almost every board in this country, representative board in this country. I'm not so sure if he met with you as a representative board, but he met with a number of representative boards in this country. But I'll take that as a recommendation. I'll take it back to Reserve Bank to say the market is concerned about the level of engagement, and there may be need to increase engagement.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the doc a good round of applause. May I kindly ask the President, Tatenda Katoma, to come forward and assist with handing over this presentation. You will notice that by the powers vested in me, I gave a bit of leeway because there were a lot of people who were hot under the collar and so on, so I had to, it was quite a topic. And Dr. Konyanya, thanks very much for coming through there. Wow. Quite a session, isn't it? I do acknowledge and I see that some of you who had started with a smile, your smiles have gone the other way. And Dr. Persistence is available for discussions around this topic. And I think it's important that when you've got somebody who sits in that committee, the Monetary Policy Committee, if you feel like going to him and saying, engage him. He will have a good sit down with you. And that's the dialogue and that's the engagement we would like. May I ask the following delegates to be upstanding? Lloyd Badze, please be upstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, before I announce why I've asked him to be outstanding, and as he walks through, let's just clap for him and let's give him a big hand. The monitors that were here did not give me the prize, but we are reliably informed that this man was the early bird for the day, and courtesy of Old Mutual, you have a little something. But apparently he was here, he was busy doing some work-related stuff. So his boss, who is in here as well, please take note that he works very hard. And then for the benefit of those that were not in, I think the full contingent of legends has arrived. Sekai Chirume, be upstanding. Panganai Sanangurai, be upstanding. Alice Shumba, be upstanding, please. Just for the benefit of those who were not here, they have won a fantastic award, dinner for 4 at a certain destination in the company of TG, because izvindo zvidhakwa zvakasara neni nezuro ku. I mean, these are brilliant friends. I couldn't have been sitting there alone. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, so. So I've eaten into your tea time. Yeah, I absolved Kudzinya Tsine because he was drinking water. Silly man. There's a fine bottle of wine and somebody drinks water. So I've eaten into our tea time because and also into the AGM time, because I don't believe an AGM should take long. So because this was a hot topic and we've got another presentation to go, I've eaten, by the powers vested in me, I've eaten into that time. So we're going to have a 10-minute break for our tea. We'll literally just go there, take whatever we're having. You can feel free to bring the tea here, and we will then actually resume. So we meet here in 10 minutes, and then there's the final presentation, a lovely presentation coming through. So let's just go and pick our tea, and then we come back and we finalize it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Okay.
Most of the questions you never answer. No, you like your question, you never answer.
Okay.
I mean, always. The guys are blowing money beyond me. Don't tell us there is a legal check. Yeah. But
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm good. How was your night?
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you may be seated. Awesome. Thank you. I did notice we did need that break, and quite a lot of interesting engagements taking place. I mean, very good engagements. I was standing with Godwin and Noel, and some very interesting engagements around monetary policy issues and you name it, amongst other things. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are really honored to have, you may have heard of Headhunters International, one of our top HR consultancy firms. We're really honored to have in our midst the managing director for Headhunters International, who's going to make a presentation on the subject, marketing and surviving in the age of transparency, implication for the Zimbabwe insurance industry. Transparency. I look forward to this presentation because it's at the center of a lot of how institutions are operating, and we are honored, and I'd ask you to assist me in welcoming to the floor Dr. Andrew Jemedze. Let's give him a big hand.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Right, it's nice to be sharing with you a very short presentation. This morning, I understand we are going towards the end of our conference. And maybe before I get into the actual presentation, it's actually quite exciting as I was listening to some of the conversations that were taking place this morning. And then I was trying to think to say, the subject of transparency, where does it come in? And obviously, it talks to issues of how organizations are being run in the country and the culture that we have built into this market for quite a number of years. So basically, I want to start by possibly just giving you a very short story, a personal story and experience dealing with insurance. Sometime, I think I graduated from the University of Zimbabwe in 1995. As a fresh graduate, went into my first employment, and one of the things that I got was a policy, an insurance policy that I don't remember what it was actually, but what was supposed to happen was that I was supposed to contribute to that policy, and over a period of 10 years, I was going to get $75,000 Zimbabwean dollars by then. And for the number of years that I contributed towards that policy, the amount that I was contributing was actually quite significant as a young professional who was coming up. And what then happened was that eventually so many things happened in the economy that you know, and that policy just disappeared. I will not name the insurer, but I can see some of the faces are sitting in this room. I never got my $75,000. I never got any explanation of what happened to that policy. I don't know whether it is still in their books or not, but at the time of contributing to that policy, it really had a strain on my personal cash flow, and it was a real issue, and I've never forgiven them. Story number two, I have lots of them. Story number two happened when Zimbabwe dollarized in 2009. And it talked to issues of one of the insurers, again, sitting in this room, whom I shall not name. But What happened was that they approached me and then said, no, you need a pension, and for your staff and for your age, you need to be contributing this amount. And let me tell you what was happening. What happened was that we resisted that pension scheme for a number of years until eventually they convinced us, worked out a scenario that needed me to pay around 2,600 US dollars per month. This is a fact. With a few of my colleagues, we started paying that amount. The intention was that by the time I reach 60, which is about 9 years from now, I should be earning something in the range of about 5,000 US dollars per month as my pension. Then some day then came where then there was change in government policy, and then there was a de-dollarization, and then came the, I don't know what it was called, RTGS or whatever. Zim dollar came back, one-to-one policy, a statutory instrument came back. Hardly 2 months when we asked our insurer, when we paid our insurance, we paid it in US dollars. And again, it was quite significant and painful to make that kind of a payment. When we then asked our insurer, I have a document that they wrote to us when they were looking for the policy. They used to come and talk to us almost every other day, monthly collections, we were their darlings. When we're now asking to say what has happened and what is the position with our pension, then they wrote to us a very small piece of paper and then attached the statutory instrument and said, it has been converted at a rate of 1-to-1, and as we speak today, the rate is sitting at this rate, and that money had been reduced value by at least 10 times at the time of receiving that. And then at that particular point in time, I then said, I don't believe in pension, and we stopped contributing to a pension fund. Then come time again, US dollar comes back, those guys resurfaced and then said, yeah, can we resuscitate that pension again? And we said, what happened to that previous one? And of course, they said it had virtually become nothing. And when we calculated that money for the period that we paid, I could have possibly bought either a reasonably big piece of land or probably a 3-bedroomed house, and we could have possibly been receiving rentals from it. And the insurer still has got a straight face, and they look at us, and they are no longer worried about it. And this is where we are now saying, now, you have got to still come back and market your products and services to so many customers who are like me, who do not believe in pension, who have had their policies disappeared and they contributed money and they never got value out of it. You have got to come to the same customer who has had a scenario where the service that they got in terms of getting their claims processed did not take place. So now, when you look at that scenario, and this is when I was invited to speak at this conference, I then said, this is an opportunity for me to be heard, and also to represent quite a number of other many customers out there who have got the same story and the same plight that I have against the insurance industry, and hence marketing in the age of what? Of transparency. When we are talking about the age of transparency, what are we talking about? Isn't it? That's the first thing that I need to talk about. Let's possibly forget about the industry and talk about transparency in general and why it is becoming a key business issue, and particularly in the era when we are talking about business sustainability. Granted all the issues that we are talking about, policy inconsistencies, granted all the issues that we are talking about, changes in currencies, inflation, and lack of confidence. But at the end of the day, there is that one person who is called the customer, and he is suffering every other time and every other minute. And the insurance industry continues to hope that it will be able to grow and make meaningful returns. Right, I'll quote one, a popular columnist in the USA, Andrew Winston. He was once quoted talking about transparency, saying, if you are going to walk naked, you better be buff, to quote his exact words. So if you are going to walk naked, in other words, we are basically saying you must really be looking good, isn't it? Make sure that the tummy is trimmed, all the muscles are looking good, and everything is looking good. But the unfortunate thing, you have no choice, ladies and gentlemen. The environment is going to be demanding that you walk naked, whether you like it or not. And we are basically saying that, whether you like it or not, our customers or our stakeholders, our business partners, our suppliers, our investors, now they know more about your organization, sometimes more than you even think they do, particularly in this age of technology. They understand you. They know whether you've got a pot belly or not in your business. They possess unprecedented information and power that they can be able to spread any negative or positive word about your organization and what is going wrong before you even communicate it yourselves. How many times in this country do we get to know about certain things that organizations and governments deny that they are untrue, but they become true the following day? And we continue to think that people are foolish and they don't understand. When something goes wrong, naturally we are saying that the damage to your business, the damage to your reputation will be revealed more quickly and faster, and it will be spread wider than you are capable of doing it yourselves. And this is the reality. Operating in this environment where you have got a landscape where data and transparency and social connectivity is the order of the day, you cannot hope and think that you can do certain things that your customers may not be able to find out. And of course, we must understand that currently everyone is carrying a video camera. Even in this room, isn't it? Everybody is carrying a video camera and things are being recorded real time. And information is being transmitted what? Real time. So how are you going to be operating in that kind of an environment where your customer really knows and is able to get information about you and your business in real time? And this is the reality of the matter. And sadly, the Zimbabwean scenario or the Zimbabwean culture is a sad one. We have all become a nation of liars, a nation of people who are dishonest, and a nation of people who are unprofessional. This is who we are. And unfortunately, that subject doesn't get discussed. We discuss everything else. I was hearing my colleague talking about here, the technicalities of currencies and everything. Fine, that's not where the issue is. The issue is, are we sincere and are we honest enough about what we are talking about? That's where the issue is. It's not about these technicalities and everything else. Until such a time as Zimbabweans and as leaders of businesses, we become sincere about what we are talking about, then we are not going anywhere. We are going to remain in this situation for as long as we are courageous enough to stand up and say, this is not right. And I'm saying as your customer, what you did to me is not right. What you did to many other customers whom I represent here today is not what? Is not right. The insurance industry has not significantly grown, and the question is why. You need to ask yourselves, in terms of value, this industry has not grown. In a population of 16 million, it has stagnated around 100 million plus or minus those kind of figures. Why is it not growing? We will talk about that, but we are carrying the cameras. What are the unlearned lessons in the Zimbabwe insurance sector? Reputation of failure to settle claims is associated with us, isn't it? It's synonymous with us. People know that if you get any insurance, getting settled is going to be difficult. That's what everybody tells you. And for your own information, people are not concerned about all those details or how the technicalities look like. They are interested in the final result. Double claims happen in Zimbabwe. long turnaround times, missing files. All these things are typical about the industry. And before I came here, I was looking at the IPEC website. And when I was looking at the reports that are being put there, the first thing that excited me is that I saw that there was a 2024 report. But when I opened that folder, the report that I got there was for the first quarter of 2024. We are living in a world of real time. But the latest information we have got is about the first quarter of 2024. Can you see the problem is already started? We are living in a world of real time. And people are communicating real information. And you go and you want to identify, find out information about a team or a group of people who are in Victoria Falls who are planning for the insurance industry, and they have got information for the first quarter of the year and they are in the third quarter. What is the expectation about the world on transparency? The world has been reset, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not. We will find ourselves having to live in that world. Whether we may choose to be stubborn and hold on to our way of doing things, but the world is not waiting for us. Access to information is now something that is very critical, and people will not make decisions about your business if they don't have enough information. There is even more huge demand about you being transparent about what you are doing. People want to know what is contained in the product that they are eating before they eat it. People want to know what kind of benefits do they get from a policy that they are going to get it before they take it. And this information should not be information that you should be going to people and then telling them so that they can buy. People already know in advance, and they are not waiting for you to teach them. But the question is, what are you doing to influence that knowledge? Companies are being held accountable for their decisions today. And demand for putting money into funds that have some impact is becoming a huge issue. What impact are you going to make into humankind? What impact are you going to make to society? And the question is, what impact has the insurance industry made or going to make to humankind or to people in Zimbabwe? So when we then look at transparency in marketing, what are we looking at? And we are saying, number one, we are now living in a world where you cannot escape the issue that transparency is now the reference point for public, professional, and private life. People are demanding transparency whether you like it or not. And you are going to be marketing in that environment where there is that demand. Transparency has become a form of governance. That's how we should be running governments. That's how we should be running public entities. That's how we should be running our private businesses. Everyone is affected by the need for transparency. And it is now a governing principle. And if your business does not have any inscription that says this is how transparent we are, then you are going to be in trouble. So openness and honesty of brands in their communication and operations is very critical. That very first quarter report that I was looking at, I looked at a section where it was talking about customer complaints. And it's a pity that you still believe that customers complain. And you still write it in writing that we complain. We don't complain, we give you feedback. There's nothing like complaining. You must be grateful that I gave you an opportunity to save me. And not the other way around, that our insurance people still believe that we complain. We don't complain, we give you feedback. And I hope those who are writing that report are here, and possibly next time we should see a section that says customer feedback. Thank you, isn't it? So, back to reality. Reality says customer complaints. And in there, believe me or not, ladies and gentlemen, in the first quarter of 2024, in the world of technology and everything else, which is the major complaint that is leading. Do you know what it is? Unsatisfactory service delivery. That was the major one. That was contributing 41% for the short-term side. And when you then go to the life side, I think it had to do with communication between insurers and policyholders. In this age and time, ladies and gentlemen, it's still a problem. And at the same time now, my fellow doctor was here talking about complex sums of stabilizing currencies. When we cannot save each other, now we want to tackle a national problem. It's beyond us. It's beyond us, ladies and gentlemen. It's like a guy who has failed to run a family of a spouse and 3 children now wants to come and run a company of 50 people. It's inevitable. You fail. So the fact that as a nation we are in a situation in which we are, it's not by accident. That's who we are. I remember in one of the scenarios, I was having a problem with, I delegated serious responsibilities to my driver. And eventually things got so terrible and I was so angry. And my wife was saying, that's why he is a driver. And for a while I couldn't understand. And she kept on saying, Andrew, that's why he is a what? A driver. The problem is not him. The problem is you who thinks that a driver can do things that can be done by what? By someone saying, we are in where we are because that's what we are. Consumers expect brands to be more forthright and about their practices, values, and products must be very clear, and we need to look at that in terms of our marketing. Let me try to move a little bit faster. The Zimbabwean context there, issues of trust have been discussed already, isn't it? People in Zimbabwe, whether you like it or not, I don't know whether you have done a research, but we don't trust you. Nobody trusts the insurance industry. And when an insurer is coming to your office, you know that he is coming with a new trick to trick me. Economic challenges continue to be put on the forefront. It's our economy, it's our country, it's our people, and for whatever reason why we can't find a solution to it, I don't know. But we continue talking about economic challenges forever. You could actually see the frustration in people. There's somebody who asked the question to say, these things have been there since 2000 when I started working, and they seem still to be the same things. What's happening? People are actually confused and mesmerized as to why we can't deal with our problems. Shifting consumer demands are also beginning to shift completely to something else. And we need to really find ourselves relevant to say, what do we need to do? Right, let's move to the next slide. There is a Consumer Act in Zimbabwe that talks about protecting consumers. I don't know what that is doing. I don't even see the protection that comes out of it. We would have seen a lot of activity into it, but we don't see much out of it. Then now, let's look at challenges with transparency. This is being demanded by your customers. But as it is being demanded by your customers, we need to look at the potential risks that you are going to face as an industry. One is when you then decide to really go the transparency route, you must know that at some point, if you are not smart at it, if you are not buff, you shall suffer some form of backlash, isn't it? And that backlash is people will then probably observe certain things that they were not supposed to have observed, and it may cause you even loss of business. So as you move towards that direction, which you need to do and which you cannot avoid or delay, you need to make sure that you look at those potential risks. Next slide. So, strategies that I may want to share with you for transparent marketing. Number one, adopt what we call authentic storytelling, isn't it? tell your stories as they are, and be genuine, and be honest, and people will value you for being sincere. Always use an open communication systems. In other words, use 7 times 7 different ways of communicating the same thing. You would rather err from a problem of over-communicating than a problem of under-communicating. Clear product information. This idea of very small fine print that eventually pitches up when I want to make a claim is not the way to do business. We must also have the capacity and the capability to apologize when things go wrong. In Zimbabwe, we don't apologize. We put on a brave face and go on as if nothing wrong happened. When things have gone wrong, admit to people and say, we are very sorry. As customers, we know things go wrong. And we respect those who actually rectify things. Then impersonal character of social media. You must be able to understand that the social media is very impersonal, isn't it? It doesn't care who it is and who you are. And it will just expose you whether you like it or not. And unfortunately, this is where we are going. Next slide. Also leverage on technology. We are getting into the digital tools for transparency. Issues of social media, also be present on those platforms, communicate, isn't it? Blockchain technology, communicate, and participate heavily on that. The few interactions that I have had with quite a number of some of you who are sitting in here is the fact that there is a gap that is existing between some of the senior colleagues who are the industry, who understand insurance the traditional way, and the youngsters who are able to use these kind of platforms. And you therefore need to look at your staff and staff yourselves in such a way that you are able to leverage on those. In fact, the most important customer is not the customer of today, but is the customer of tomorrow. So you need to be able to be prepared or work for that customer, isn't it? Then the next thing that you need to do, always engage with what? With customers. Don't only be appearing like a politician who wants to be voted when you want to renew a policy. We want a continuous two-way communication system, feedback mechanisms, active listening, and you must always spend time with your customers. How are you spending time with your customers? Isn't it? You need to spend time with your customers. Because when you spend your time with customers, you get to know what we want and how we want it. And then the solution is easy. But this idea of sitting in a lab and try to engineer what you think we want is not going to work for you. I'm sorry. Then there's an impasse that you must deal with at the moment. This impasse is between the insurance sector and the customers in general. The impasse is there's lack of transparency in terms and conditions of how insurance runs in Zimbabwe. There are complex claim processing mechanisms and systems that we just have got to follow that we get to know at the time when we are claiming. But at the time of getting the policy, those complexities are not clearly articulated to us. Yes, you could hide behind the finger that we gave you a document to read, but you still have got a responsibility to convince me. There is loss of trust, and there's an impasse between the insurance and the customers, which is creating a bigger disconnect between the two, and a risk of industry failure. Why am I saying there is a risk of industry failure? If you look at the way people are insuring things these days, we only insure to the extent for purposes of compliance. We don't go beyond what? Compliance. And if we were to wake up tomorrow and there is no legislation that supports that, quite a number of firms in this industry would close in 24 hours. So you need to deal with that impasse and get us to understand. So there are issues of ethical practices. We must make sure that we do our businesses ethically. Let's ensure claims are substantiated, avoid misleading information, be honest with customers, and make sure that what you do is sustainable. Companies should correct what has gone wrong and recover the customers and build the reputation of trust and honesty with your clients. Remember what happened with Toyota with the Prius hybrid. They produced a defective vehicle, they went into the market and recalled it. And they compensated customers. It didn't come cheap. But they had to do that for sustainability of business. Next slide. Right. So what you then need to do, if you want to follow this direction of transparency, you need to measure the impact of your transparency. And we are saying that excellence must not be an event, but it must be a lifestyle. The Zimbabwean culture of dressing nicely when visitors are coming is not sustainable. The Zimbabwean culture of cleaning the house when visitors are coming is not sustainable. And it's not our lifestyle. A lifestyle is you live in a cleaned house whether they're a visitor or not. You shall have a 3-course meal whether they're a visitor or what? Or not. That's what we say, build excellence into your lifestyle. And you need to create matrices or KPIs of measuring what? Transparency in your business. Customer trust indices can be measured. Customer engagement matrices can be measured. Customer delight indexes can actually be measured. Those are some of the things that you need to bring on board. Future trends, we are going to see increased customer power. The customers are going to be much more powerful than yourselves. And they are going to be shaping your business more than you are currently doing. And how prepared are you? The use of artificial intelligence is now a game changer. And it's actually too late for this market because other markets, it's already reality. And to what extent have we responded to those needs that are happening? Dominance of global customers. There are customers who are now beginning to look beyond the borders. We are still focusing within our own border. Diversity, increased regulatory scrutiny, and rise of ethical consumerism. Those things are now beginning to take place. And when you then look at the role of regulation, unfortunately, and this is said, that in Zimbabwe we want to regulate everything. But the global trend is what? Regulation. People are saying, just create a level playing field and leave us alone. But here we come up with acts which are almost procedure manuals. And it's a pity. We will not get anywhere. So let's adopt best practices. Let's look at what is happening and let's create an environment where we unleash our people to be able to show the potential that they have. Right, I'm coming to the end, Mr. Speaker. Maybe just 2 or so slides. So, how are we going to overcome resistance to transparency? You will have to address your internal challenges as businesses, isn't it? I know there's the external environment, and in my early studies in management, it tells me that a business operates within an internal and external environment, and you do not have control over the external environment. Only in Zimbabwe, executives try to control the external environment. I don't know where they started. Common barriers. Fear of negative feedback. So people are afraid that if we are transparent, then we'll get negative feedback. You have to overcome that fear. Looking at strategies which foster culture of openness and courage and leadership. In Zimbabwe, we have a very autocratic, hierarchical way of managing where the leader is not questioned. And we are getting into a period where people are becoming more and more courageous and they don't care who you are, and they'll still ask you and tell you that I don't agree with what you are saying. Ultimately, change will be forced upon the insurance companies, whether you like it or not. And those who think they can be stubborn enough, they will go under. And those who will embrace this will actually be able to move better. In conclusion, I want to quote my friend again, Andrew Winston, who said, if you want to walk naked, you better be what? Be buff. And he gave 3 important points. Number 1, get your act together. At the moment, your act is in shambles. Put it together. Number 2, listen to all your stakeholders. You don't have to engineer anything. We'll tell you what we want. If we want to be saved on a red carpet, put the red carpet and charge for it. Number 3, he says, know your story and be prepared to what? To tell it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the voice of one disgruntled customer who still has got hope that one day we'll have a very vibrant and exciting industry in the age of transparency. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. The truth was spoken, isn't it? Good afternoon, Madam Commissioner. We love you to bits, eh? Just the truth coming out, and quite a bit for us to reflect on, isn't it? Good afternoon, Doc. Some messages very loud and clear. And good afternoon, you executives of insurance companies. The truth was said. As that small print when the claim is coming, and you're like, ah. But I think what an awesome, open, practical, very practical presentation. In your opinion, Doc, are we ready for this? Are we ready for that transparent, open style?
We are not ready, but unfortunately, we have to be. We have no choice. That's the sad news. It will force itself upon us.
So is it a change from the top that we need to help us to be ready for this? Because I think in our setting, the top is in here.
Certainly, the top has got to do that. But what I have seen in practice is that we seem to talk quite a lot, but the practices in terms of procedures and the way we do things, they remain the same. So there is talk of what we should do in 2024, but the procedure that your lower level employee is using today was written in 2002. So it's like having a problem with your laptop and you think that if I go and buy a new one, it will perform very well, but you come and install the old software into it. So we need to deal with the software issues beyond just the fact that leaders talk of a VUCA environment, and we talk of very nice terms and very nice concepts, but the way we do things on a day-to-day basis, the script was written for customers who are non-existent.
Wow. All right, that's quite a bit of food for thought statement there. I'll ask you to come in.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that presentation, which was delivered with so much emotion, truth, vigor, everything in it. But for your comfort, Doc, you are not the only victim of the circumstances. We are all victims in this room. That is the truth. And what I didn't see in your presentation is the effect of the third force, which has led to this malaise. What do I mean? Regulation. Yes, we've got a regulator here. So perhaps in your presentation, when you talk of loss of value, we could give some hints to the regulator so that perhaps the third force can act. For instance, instead of waiting for one to retire to have access to pension, why not make it an annual withdrawal, a drawdown, because of the loss of value? And this is what we are saying. So you spoke of the fine print. Yes, the industry has evolved, and this morning the industry has taken a lot of hammering. Justified, I don't know, but we're all victims. That's the word of the day. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Very interesting, and I hear your concern, but we can never take comfort from the point that there are lots of us who have failed, and then we feel comfortable, because there are many of us who don't have umbrellas, and we are all suffering from the rain. That cannot take comfort from us. Unfortunately, like I said, and I once presented a similar issue on a different platform. The scenario in Zimbabwe is such that business is teaching customers to live without them. It's the Zesa situation. They've taught us to live. They've taught us to live without electricity. And when you teach us to live without you, we devise methodologies and ways of surviving without you. And then what happens is that it's your business that goes under. So, yes, there is the third party. There are all these challenges that I totally agree and we all agree with. But I'm speaking from the point of view that out of all the choices of business that are available in the country, you chose insurance. And when you chose insurance, you were very sure that there's this other guy who has got a very long hand who makes people's value disappear. He's going to continue doing that for your customer. But the relationship of an insurance policy is between myself and yourself. And at the time of obtaining it, nobody is talking about this other third hand. So we are therefore saying that yourself and myself, we have a responsibility of making sure that in that adverse environment, how then do we make sure that both our interests are protected? And hence, that's why I agreed to come to this platform where you were talking about innovation, sustainability, and what? And impact. You just have to innovate under those current environment, because this other third guy, you do not have control over him. So talking from a business point of view, as a business person, we just have to adjust ourselves and see how we can do it. This is notwithstanding the fact that there could be other things that we could be doing to lobby to create that kind of an environment that you want. But doing nothing is creating a scenario where I'll only pay insurance if there is a regulation that says I should do so and comply. But if I can also be able to avoid the compliance, I'll do so. And I'll comply as a last resort, and the industry will continue to shrink. That would be my response. Very unfair, but that's the reality.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think I'd love to probe your mind a bit. I know there's talk about design thinking, where you're centralizing all maybe your processes or your products along what customers want or the customer's needs, and then you iterate from there until you get a perfect fit. So I wanted to know, does the customer know what's really best for them? Why do I ask this? Somebody once gave an analogy where they were saying, if Henry Ford had listened to what customers wanted, there would probably be a faster horse, not the car that we now have, or the Ford car that we now have. Meaning that at times customers do have desires, do have expectations, but at times a little bit of lab testing, to put it in your words, might it not be required for some innovative products at times to be birthed? Just me probing you. Thank you.
Yeah, look.
Sorry, Doc, before you take that, is there another one? I've just got to attend to something. Any other one so that he combines the responses? All right, over to you, Doc.
Okay, thank you. Look, there's nothing wrong in innovating and look at continuous improvement without necessarily being informed by the customer. But if you really look at the history and the development of the whole marketing philosophy, from what was called the product concept, where businesses would devise a product and then go and try and convince customers that you need this. That kind of concept has failed many years ago, and it has been seen that it's very painful. And unfortunately, insurance industry, for whatever reason, people have always, even authors have even written that insurance is not a sought product, isn't it? And I don't know why we continue to propagate that theory. It's actually a necessity and it's a need. And customers know what they want to insure and how they want it insured. So the first error would really be for any business is actually to think that customers don't know what they want and they are not as skilled as we are and they are not as innovative as we are, so therefore they are daft and we must think for them. That's actually a dangerous concept. And of course, when you then look at that particular school of thinking where they say that if customers were asked about vehicles, then possibly we could have had hybrid horses that run faster. It's that guy's thinking, but that doesn't make it universally correct. And it's actually untrue about customers because customers know what they want. And some of these products and competition that you actually experience is not competition that is arising as a result of the fact that people are innovative. It's because they would have seen gaps in the service provision and the way you are doing things. And you find that the biggest competition that you then cannot resist is competition that is set against you by customers. So give them their opportunity to give you feedback and get them to participate. And if you can then be able to innovate and even do better, then that's even more exciting. That's what I would suggest.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Dr. Jemeza a very big hand. You can come in, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the speaker for the feedback. We're now going to call the...
Not a complaint, eh?
The complaints feedback and not complaints. And I think just before we started speaking, we released the short-term report. It's now available. It's now available. You can go and check on the report. And then on the compensation framework, I think the feedback is that we received about 95% of submissions. There are challenges, systemic challenges coming from the assessments, and these are being worked on. There are data challenges affecting computation, issues of asset separation, issues of funding, issues of liquidity. And the Commission is working on interventions to deal with the challenges. And you'll soon get communication from the Commission. But that said, really the issue of compensation shouldn't be an issue for the Commission alone. I think it's more of an issue for the industry. I like the way you talk about dishonest. I think the element of dishonest must be addressed for us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't want it to get into thank you very much for your presentation. I don't want it to be a direct, yes, you say that, but we hear that presentation and guys who are clamoring for that report, apparently it is out. Is that the Q2 or Q3? So it's the Q2 one as at June that is out. But thank you very much, ma'am. According to doctor's recommendation at TAP, let's have it out on the first day after the quarter. Well, it is very befitting that at this time, we're in the zone where we have president-elects. Yeah? I'd like to call on the president-elect, Clementine Chinyuku, to come forward and assist us with presenting this token of appreciation to Dr. Andrew Chemedze. Elect, that he elect. Let's give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I can confirm that as far as the main presentations of this conference, that brings us to the end of the 2024 Insurance Institute of Zimbabwe Annual Conference.